Hello everybody and welcome to the mid-year book freakout tag. Hi guys, how's it going? My name is Megan. Should have said that earlier. Whoops. And I'm doing the mid-year book freakout tag today. This tag was created by not me. It's been around for a while. I will credit the original creator down below along with listing the questions if you want to do this yourself. So should we just jump straight in? I will preface this by saying that a lot of these answers will just be the same. I'm probably going to talk about the same books or the same characters a few times, and I apologise, but like, it's just what my heart is telling me, so let's just go with it. Alright. So question number 1 is the best book of the year so far, and I have more than one answer for this. So first, I would like to give an honourable mention to Circe by Madeline Miller, which I read this year and really loved, but it didn't quite make my top 3. So I'm just going to talk about 3 books right now. So we have The Once and Future Witches by Alexi Harrow, which was amazing. It was so good. It's about 3 sisters who live in sort of like an alt history New Salem, America in like 1893, and it's sort of told through the lens of the suffragette movement, but it's also about witchcraft, and it's so beautifully written, and the characters are so flawed and beautiful, and it was so good. Please read this, like, please, it's so good. And then next we have Gina Ryan by Cassandra Clare, the beautiful Fairy Loot edition. This book is the sequel to Chain of Gold, the second book in the Last Hours trilogy, and it follows shadow hunters in turn of the century London, and it's full of characters making bad choices and communicating terribly and having to sort of deal with like emotional turmoil whilst also dealing with like demons, and it's just it's like painful. It feels weird to call it a favourite because like I can't say I enjoyed myself watching this. It was a very reading this. It was a very stressful time, and I think it will only be firmly solidified as a favourite once the 3rd book is out and everything is resolved. But like, I went through so many things reading this book that I couldn't not mention it. And then finally, we have Gideon the Ninth by Tanzania, which I read last month and was fucking phenomenal. It's so good. It's about Gideon Nav, who is sort of an indentured servant, kind of, to the 9th house, and the houses are just like giant spaceship planet things. Way in the future, you all have different necromantic powers, and a summons is issued from the Emperor asking the chief necromancer and a cavalier, which is basically just like a fancy bodyguard, to go to Canaan House to train to become lictors, which are like fancy necromancers, and the cavaliers. And then it turns into like a gothic murder mystery, but there's also like top tier lesbian yearning, and it's just so good and like so funny but also like moving. It's just, there is some beautifully written prose in this, and then there's just some like top tier like shit posting is the best way I could describe it. It's just an entity unto itself, and I fucking loved it, and the audiobook is superb. So yeah, they're my top 3 books so far this year. I can't narrow it down any more than that for you, I'm afraid. And the next question is the best sequel. Now I've already mentioned Chain of Iron, so I don't want to mention that one again. So Harrow the Ninth by Tanzania is the sequel to Gideon the Ninth, and took a very different turn in terms of like tone and stylistic choice, which was really difficult to get your head around at first, but like so worthwhile at the end. And I don't want to talk about the plot of this one because obviously if you haven't read Gideon the Ninth, then like go read that, and then you can read this one and just be completely at a loss. But it's so good, and you know, almost made it to my top of the year, but I didn't want to talk about both of them at the same time. You know, I thought I would give you some brief respite. It's so good. Please read these books if you are at all interested in sci-fi. And an honourable mention to Hang the Moon by Alexandria Bellafleur, which is like the companion novel to Written in the Stars. It's just like a cute rom-com. I mentioned it in my June wrap-up if you want to go hear my thoughts on it. And it's just like I just loved it. It was just so good. Next are unread new releases, and I have a few of those, but I'm just going to touch on 2 of them. So first we have Perfect on Paper by Sophie Gonzalez. I read Only Mostly Devastated last year, and it was really cute and I really liked it, and then found out that she was coming out with a new book. Sophie Gonzalez was coming out with a new book that was about a bisexual protagonist, and I'm excited, and I own it. I've not read it yet, and I don't know why. And next we have Mr. Impossible by Maggie Stiefvater, the sequel to Call Down the Hawk. a book that I read earlier this year, really liked, really want to know what's going on in the sequel. I own it, I haven't read it yet. Don't know why. So I didn't really explain the plot of Perfect on Paper. I tend to not look up synopses for contemporary books, and I don't want to explain the plot of Mr. Impossible because it is the second book in a companion trilogy. So The Raven Boys is the first sort of series and is about 4 boys who go to a fancy prep school who then get tangled up with Blue, the daughter of a psychic, whilst they look for a dead Welsh king. And it's just as weird as it sounds, but like it's one of my favourite series and I'm very excited to carry on in the world. The next question is most anticipated release for the end of the year. So I've got a few. I'm not going to touch on them too much just because most of them are sequels, so like you need prior knowledge. So just diving right in. We have Gods and Monsters by Shelby Mahurin. I have not yet read Blood and Honey, but I am looking forward to completing the series and sort of binging through all of it. So I read Serpent and Dove and liked it. And I bought Blood and Honey and haven't read it yet, so I'm hoping that once I get Gods and Monsters I can just binge through the whole thing. But it's sort of set in a weird, like French inspired fantasy world, and it's about witches and witch hunters, and it's like enemies to lovers, forced marriage, a lot of tropes, a lot of fun. Looking forward to seeing where the rest of the series goes. Another book on the list is Aurora's End, which is, I guess I'm not super anticipating it. It is my least favourite Amy Kaufman sci-fi, because I'm a big fan of the rest of her works, whether they be with J. Kristoff or with Megan Spooner. And the comedy just skews a little bit the wrong way for this one, but that does come out later this year and I am going to read it when it comes out because I need to know how it ends and how characters fare. But yeah, that's a sci-fi set in the future about a girl who wakes up and she's been asleep for like years and she's found and sort of adopted by a ragtag group of misfits who get banded together in this pilot school and then have to go on an adventure to try and like save the universe, I guess. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that trilogy concludes. And finally, Isn't It Romantic comes out later this year, which is the next companion book in the Romance Book Club series. I'm really excited to read that. It's just a really cute romance series about guys who read romance books to help like fix their relationships, and it's sometimes a bit preachy, a bit too like, here is a feminist theory that I know about, let's talk about it in a weird way. But that they're still cute and I still like them a lot, so I'm looking forward to that one too. And now we have biggest disappointments. Now I didn't pick up any of the disappointments, I don't know why, I didn't stack them up, so I'm just going to talk about them and hope for the best. So Wicked by Jennifer L. Armentrout was a big disappointment. Everyone loves From Blood and Ash, and I thought I would try some more JLA since I've liked White Hot Kiss in the past. Is that what that series is called? I enjoyed that when I read it, so I started Wicked and it was not good. And I read the entire trilogy in like 2 days just so I could find out how it ended, and it was the most unsatisfying ending of a trilogy I've ever read. And it pissed me off. So yeah, that was one of my biggest disappointments. Another one was Kingdom of the Wicked. That had been massively hyped for me and it was just like a bit lackluster. Like the writing wasn't fantastic and the plot was really slow moving. That was by Kerry Maniscalco. It's about a sister who's trying to solve her twin sister's murder, and it involves like kings of hell and deals with demons and like another enemies to lovers romance, and the romance didn't feel built up to me. The entire plot hinges on these twin sisters like being ride or die for each other and like committing like, I don't know, going against everything their families have ever taught them. And it just didn't sit right. Like I didn't believe it, you know? But that's just me. Everyone else seems to love it. It was disappointing for me. And finally we have The Secret by Julie Garwood. I really enjoy a historical romance from time to time, and this one was like lauded as being like amazing. Everyone that I've seen on YouTube talk about it is like, it's my favourite, and I didn't like it. I didn't think the romance made sense at all. There was like no communication. It was very like forceful and the guy was just like the worst. I did like the friendship between the two female characters, but like that was it. That was the only thing I liked. Everything else was terrible, and that was really disappointing because I really thought it was going to be like my new favourite historical romance that I could go and reread time and time again when I was feeling ill and sorry for myself and just wanted to read something easy, and it just sucked. So that was a shame. But like obviously all opinions are my own. You are welcome to enjoy what you enjoy, and I'm glad for you if you enjoyed that book. Like I wish I had. I truly do. Alas, here we are. So the next question is the biggest surprise, and these two, they're sort of rereads for me, so I've got 2 answers for this. Scrap chat. So biggest surprise, I have 3 answers for this one. The first one is really stupid. It's Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, which is obviously about Jane Eyre, who is a governess and she goes to work for Mr. Rochester at Thornfield Hall, and a lot of drama unfolds from that point onwards. If you don't know the plot of Jane Eyre, then like, where have you been? And I don't know why, I always go into classics not expecting much because I feel like they're always going to be difficult. I loved this. It was really easy to read. Jane was really easy to root for as a character, and even though the romance is like toxic as fuck and like we shouldn't be rooting for it, and if any man ever treated me like that in real life, like I am out of there. But like I loved it. It was great. 5 stars. New favourite classic. Like what else is there to say? My next one is another Bronte. We have Withering Heights by Emily Bronte. This I tried to read years ago and I just like couldn't get through it. I thought it was written in a really clunky way. I didn't like how the narration was not from our main character's perspectives. It was like a guy shows up and someone tells him the story, and it was really odd. And that's still not my favourite, like sort of, it did detract from my rating for this one. This did get 4 stars, but considering the last time I tried to read it, I DNF'd it at like 70 pages. Like, this is a surprise. I did end up actually enjoying this. All of the characters are still terrible, and this is not a romance at all. With Jane Eyre, like I could see that like maybe I shouldn't be rooting for these people, but I super was. In this one, I was just like, oh, I know that all of these people basically die, like, good. But there were some like beautiful like lines that do evoke romance. I don't know, it's a weird one. I haven't explained the plot of this one, but again, if you don't know what Withering Heights is about, like where have you been? Like, it's a classic. And yeah, big surprise that I actually got through and liked this. And my final surprise is another reread, and it's The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I first read this 2 years ago. I didn't like it. I thought it was really overrated. I didn't understand why people were going on about it. I thought the writing style didn't lend itself well to what the book was doing. I hated that it's like pitched and marketed as like a competition, and it's not. But then I reread it knowing exactly what the plot was, just because I thought maybe knowing what it is and giving it another chance I'd enjoy it more. And you know what? I'm glad I did, because it was so good. I only gave it a chance because for Whatever-a-thon, hosted by Maddie over at Book Rising Blog, she had it as one of her host faves, and her other 2 host faves were Strange the Dreamer and Once the Future Witches, which are like my favourite books ever. So I was like, maybe I should give this another go. Like if she's put it on the same level as these 2 books, like maybe I will like it. And you know what? It was great. I fell in love with the romances, I fell in love with the side characters, the setting, the atmosphere, the aesthetic. It was all working for me. So I'm glad that I gave this one another shot, because I have like a new tentative favourite book now. Like it's not way up there, but it got 5 stars. Like I bought the Illumicrate edition because I want all of the aesthetic ass merch. Like this was good. Me from 2 years ago is just looking at me like, what? But this, I really liked it. The next question we have is a new favourite author, and that is going to have to be Alex E. Harrow. I'd never read any Alex E. Harrow before this year. I picked up Once and Future Witches because Maddie and India, from what India read, had been talking about it. I was really intrigued, and it had come in a Illumicrate box, so I was like, well, I'll pick it up, give it a go. And it was excellent. And then after reading that, I was like, well, I have to pick up 10,000 Doors of January now, because I'd wanted it for ages because the cover was beautiful but wasn't sure if I was going to vibe. And again, it got 5 stars. It was really good. I loved the characters, the romances, the side characters, like the world, the doors. It was so good, and I loved the epistolary elements of it. So yeah, Alex E. Harrow. Very looking forward to A Spindle Splintered, which I think is her novella retelling the Sleeping Beauty story. Very hyped for that, and gonna go root around in her backlist for anything else she's done. The next question is newest fictional crush, and as a 24-year-old, I don't find myself crushing on fictional characters as much anymore, like, or as much as I did in my youth, but I did read the Written in the Stars books by Alexandra Bellafleur, and I do, like, I love Darcy and Brendan, the Lowell siblings. Like, I love them. I, like, straight up would marry them both. Like, what great siblings. And also I would die for Gideon now, so there's that too. But yeah, I don't find myself crushing on characters as much as I did as a child. However, reading Cassandra Clare, like, I am just in love with all of those characters, like Matthew, James, Thomas. Christopher, not as much, just because he doesn't have enough page time, but like Lucy, I love Lucy. Cordelia. And then seeing Will again, like he was my OG, like my ride or die as like a 14-year-old. Like, I would, like, Will Herondale was like everything to me, and like just seeing him like older and happy, well, I love it. Anyway, moving on. Favourite new character? 100% Gideon now. Like, I love her. She's hilarious. She's like dumb as hell. She is like peak himbo energy. Like, giant, beefy, redheaded, funny as fuck, but dumb as shit. Like, I love her. The next question is a book that made me cry, and it took me a while to like think back. And I'm like, have I cried at a book recently? And the only one that came to mind is embarrassing as shit, but it was Ghost of the Shadow Market by Cassandra Clare. Now, I haven't read this whole book. I was just reading the short stories are about the characters that show up in the last hours, so the Matthew and the Anna stories, just because I hadn't read them before reading Chain of Gold, and I thought they might like shed some light on the characters, and they 100% did. I definitely should have read them before reading Chain of Gold. However, I've not read The Dark Artifices, so I didn't want to read any more from this until I'd done that, because I think there might be some characters in here that show up there, and there are just too many books to follow. However, I did end up not pausing it and just sort of carrying on and listening to the one after, and then Learn About Loss is like a gem story set in like 1936, and it made me cry. Like the other two had like sad moments, but like the story where Jem was like reminiscing about his time with Will, like I was straight up crying, and like I wasn't even expecting to feel any kind of emotions. I didn't know really what the stories were going to be about. I just knew that I was going to listen to the first two because they were about characters that I was about to read Chain of Iron, and I thought it might help to know more about them. And then I was literally crying over Will Herondale because my 14-year-old self still has like a chokehold on me. So that was embarrassing, and we're going to start talking about it now. A book that made me happy. Now, like lots of books have made me happy, but Written in the Stars and Hang the Moon just brought me so much joy. Like I cannot tell you how happy they made me. I was just, and also We Can't Keep Meeting Like This by Rachel and Solomon was like peak romance too. Like romance books make me happy, and I've read a lot of good ones this year. So Written in the Stars and Hang the Moon by Alexandra Belfleur and We Can't Keep Meeting Like This like Rachel and Solomon like brought a smile to my face. I'm not going to tell you what they're about because I don't really go into contemporaries like knowing what they're about, but, like very vague. Written in the Stars is about an actuary and a horoscope person who have to fake date in order to get the actuary's brother off her back and end up falling in love, and it's adorable. And then Hang the Moon is about the brother and the best friend of the actuary from the first book recreating scenes from rom-coms so that the brother who runs a dating app can prove that love is real. And then We Can't Keep Meeting Like This is about the daughter of a wedding planner who plays harps at weddings and the son of a catering like family who caters some of the weddings, and they used to be really close and then things went awry and then they sort of get closer again over the summer, but there's lots of issues, and it's just great. It just brought me joy, and I highly recommend you read them. The next question is, what was the most beautiful book you got? Now, I've had a lot of beautiful books delivered to me over the past 6 months because I am subscribed to Fairy Loot and Illumicrate, and they're really like killing it on the beautiful book game this year. However, I have two books I want to talk about. One is from Fairy Loot and one is from Litjoy, which I'm not subscribed to, but when you see the book you will understand why I got it. So the first one is Fairy Loot, and it is Witches Deep in Gold, and let me show you the beauty. So yeah, this is Witches Deep in Gold by Sian Smart, and just like look at that dust jacket, and then these edges, and then the back of the dust jacket, the spine, and then we have it sort of engraved in foil just on the front, if that makes sense, and then we have beautiful art on the back of the dust jacket, and the stenciling goes all the way around, by the way, it's not just one side. Beautiful signed like tip in. It's stunning. And the next most beautiful book I got is my Litjoy version of Strange the Dreamer, which have gilded edges. It has the most beautiful end pages that I've ever seen in my entire life. Like look at them, they're so pretty. It has art running through. Can I find any of it? Like, it's stunning. The Muse of Nightmares is also just as pretty. It came in like a gorgeous box. I don't want to show all of it because they're really high on my shelf, and I don't know why I didn't bring it all down, but here we are. But yeah, like very, very pretty. I know a lot of people have had issues with the shipping and it arriving weirdly, but mine arrived perfectly. They're so pretty. I spent literally like 4 hours just staring at them. Like, yeah, I've had lots of pretty books this year, but those two I think like top it. And the final question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? The first one is The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke, which came in an Illumicrate. It came in an Illumicrate box, and I've been super excited about it ever since it arrived and just not read it. Couldn't tell you why, and I need to prioritise book books anyway, so I may as well get to this as soon as possible. I don't know why I haven't, but I'm really excited about it and I really need to get to it by the end of the year. Otherwise, like, what am I doing? Why am I subscribed to Illumicrate and Fairy Loot if I'm not reading them? And then we have Crescent City by Sarah J Maas, which I've owned for a really long time. I bought it pretty much straight away as it came out. This also has beautiful end pages, like wow. I don't really know what it's about, I just know it's her like first official foray into adult fantasy, and it's sort of more urban than any of her previous books. I know Becca from Becca in the Books like fucking loves this book, and I want to read it. I feel like once I read this I might re-fall in love with Sarah J Maas again. I've sort of like stepped away a bit recently and just not been excited to pick up any of her books, but I feel like once I start reading it then I'm just going to get sucked in and completely fall in love. So I hope that happens, and I hope I do read it before the end of the year. So yeah, that's it for this year's mid-year book freakout tag. Hopefully I do one next year and I can see what the difference is. Oh, just to quickly run through some stats though. Like I say some stats, just a singular stat. So we're halfway through the year, which means I should be halfway through my Goodreads goal of 106 books. However, I'm like well past that. I've read 93 out of the 106 books as it stands on the 10th of July, which is not like directly in the mid-year, but to be fair, I've read one book since July started. So at the end of June, I'd read 92 books, which I do not think the rest of the year is going to continue in such a prolific fashion. But I mean, fingers crossed it does. Fingers crossed I can cross loads of things off of my TBR, get like my physical TBR down to a more reasonable level. Right now it's overflowing a Billy bookshelf. Yeah, hopefully I start reading more physical books and less grabbed audio books, and we can get my TBR down a bit. But it's just so much harder to read with your eyes, you know? When you work full time at the end of a work day to then like want to read with your eyes, it's tough, but fingers crossed that it goes well. So yeah, that's it for my mid-year book freakout tag. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're having a good day. I try and upload videos twice a week. I'm shuffling about the dates a bit at the moment because Wednesday and Sunday was not going well for me as the 2-month hiatus displayed. So I'm thinking Monday, Friday. If that doesn't work, we'll figure something out. But yeah, I look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please leave a like and a comment. Follow me on other social media. Everything is linked down below. And I will see you next time. Bye.